and we're going to talk about current monetization trends. We have our experts here. We have Halic from Verve, Giuseppe from AdSpark, and Omar from AdShield. Let's start with a quick round of introductions, and then we'll get to our questions. And if we have time, I think at the end we can have some Q&A, little. Omar, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, thanks. So it's Omar from AdShield. We're an edtech company, 4 years old. So edtech is like a mathematics, like everyone understands, but nobody knows what it is. So it's more about monetization right now. So we have an ad network, and we are connected to so many DSPs and publishers directly. So currently we are connected to almost 200 different publishers. So it's a really great network for gaming industry. And also same case for advertiser side. That's why we are on the dark side, basically. So I'll let other edtech partners to continue with Halic.
Well, dark side. I'm not sure about that. I'll take it. I take it. I like the dark side. Firstly, thank you for Mobidictum for setting this up. I think we've got to show appreciation with what's happened in the past few years, and we're coming together to speak and share knowledge. I don't want to sound like a broken record. I want to try and give some insights. I come from the desktop world and moving into mobile, and I've been in mediation ad serving for a number of years. I was at Mopub, I was at Fiber, previously known as Digital Turbine, other way around, Digital Turbine, previously known as Fiber, and now I'm at Verve Group. So Verve Group is an omni-channel platform. We represent marketers and publishers and to deliver ads for users across various formats and screens, whether it's mobile, CTV, or mobile web.
Cool, thanks, Halic. So hi, everyone. I'm Giuseppe Martoriello, co-founder at AdSpark. As you might have guessed from my name and from my accent, I'm originally Italian, but actually I've lived in Australia for the past 8 years, which it does mean I took a 24-hour flight just for this panel. So hopefully you can share some interesting insights. A little bit about AdSpark. So we're a full stack monetization partner for games. We offer both around the game kind of ad units, which means the standard banners, interstitials, rewarded. But we also have some more innovative ad formats like in-game advertising. So our tech stack is hosted on Google Ad Manager, which means it's quite easy to integrate for games across their mediation platforms. Thanks.
Okay, that's the group. So let's start with the first question, which is related to mobile programmatic world. Maybe we can discuss the DSP and SSP, their working logic, and their relationship with advertisers and pubs. So Halic, do you want to kick off?
No.
No?
No. Sure. So I'm not going to assume everyone knows what a DSP and an SSP is, so I'll just quick do an overview. Consider it buy and sell. So a buyer is what we call a DSP, so demand-side platform. A seller is a supply-side platform, SSP. So SSP is someone who represents a publisher. So a lot of people are here today as publishers. You have something to sell, which is your space. Then you have a DSP, which is representing agencies and brands. They want to put the ad on your inventory. Simple, buy and sell. Now these are companies that trade in let's say, an environment which we call OpenRTB, which is a language or protocol that everyone adheres to, where operates a transparency for who's buying, who's selling, at what price, and what for. Now, a lot of words I just shared there, but essentially buying and selling, a language between the two. Now, if you look at this in the mobile world, mobile is specifically dominated by apps in ad networks that we work with today. So they dominate in terms of the spend in mobile app. Then when you have programmatic, which is SSPs and DSPs, they still represent a smaller portion, but they're growing. So the difference between the desktop world and the mobile app world is that desktop, there are no ad networks left. Mobile app world, the ad networks dominate. So we all know the names such as like IronSource, Unity, AdMob, AppLovin, etc., and they're dominant. But if you also notice, they have an ad network behind them, they have an ad exchange behind them as well. So they realize there's value operating in this open RTB space, but they know that the money and bread and butter is in the ad network space. So the clear difference between the two is they're still delivering an ad, to the user on the device, but they do it through various ways.
It's a great summary.
Don't know if it is, but I'll try.
You mentioned ad networks, right? And their importance to,
Yes.
to our environment. Any one of you maybe add on the importance of ad networks?
So, yeah, why not? Basically, we are an ad network, so.
Yeah, and yeah.
So, actually, Kalok stepped into the ad exchange part 2 because it's the basically deal side, right? So, for publishers, it's really important to understand the programmatic world. So, how is the money taken by advertisers and getting into publisher side? And here, it's not like black and white. So, the line is with up and downs. So, we are somewhere inside this chain as an ad network. So, like a carrier, like a salesman, trader. So basically, we are connected to all advertisers and also the publishers. And then, without an ad network, this chain wouldn't be possible. So we can say logistics, I think. So carrying the load of advertisers and publishers, I think that's the summary for importance of ad networks.
Amazing.
Yeah, cool. So I think what's also important is that a publisher, when they talk to a new monetization partner, they also understand, are they bringing unique demands? Are they bringing some strength in certain geos? Like, there is no two equal ad partners. So my suggestion for publishers here would be to test new partners, but make sure you also talk to them, understand their strength, understand their weakness. Most people would say that they're good at everything, but then you actually have to understand what they're good at. Are they good at rewarded? Are they good at banners? Or are they good in like APAC? So yeah, I think that's an important suggestion for publishers to really understand and talk to them. Because the good thing with ad networks and monetization partners is that they'll work across 50, 100, 200 different publishers. So they can give you some nice insights in terms of what works for other publishers. What we see at AdSpark is that certain publishers, they love to focus on CPM. They set really high prices because their idea is that I'm not going to focus on having 100% match rate because I really want to show an ad when it's valuable, when actually the CPM makes sense. While others, they focus on fill rate. So it's about strategy, as with everything, I think.
I suppose just to add on that, I know we're going to touch on waterfall and header bidding and placements, etc. I think we all can agree that bidding is the future, but we could also agree that waterfall has its place in terms of the revenues it brings. There's a lot of publishers, regardless if they're hyper-casual or mid-core, they still see the value in waterfall because they can control, right? With bidding, it's kind of a blind box, particularly when it's coming from ad networks, because I mentioned before, they don't operate in this open RTB, this transparent way. So what they bid is what they bid. You don't know necessarily what information they're doing from behind the scenes to get that bid. Yeah. But saying all of this, there are still publishers who will go forward with bidding purely because of the operational time it takes. Even though they make more money through waterfall, they're still moving towards bidding because they see that's the future. So they're willing to sacrifice the revenue and time for operational ease.
So do you think waterfalls will still be relevant in the future, even if it's more and more not prevalent, let's say? Sure.
So I push that question to the mediation platforms, right? So they're the ones who are, I don't want to say dictating, but giving their opinions as to where publishers should be concentrating their efforts. So it's down to the publishers putting pressure on the mediation platforms to say, you know what, I'd rather work with this partner in waterfall than bidding because of I see more revenues with this partner through waterfall. For example, Digital Turbine does fantastically well in the waterfall placement, whilst AppLovin, fantastic as a bidder, right? They're dominant. So as a publisher, it's down to you to decide what do you want to do, right? Do you want to have control, or do you want to just have one partner that dominates?
I just want to add one more thing there. Sure. Actually, more than mediation side, it's also a strategical move for the publisher. So if you have one very big game, let's say 100 million download and so many active users, then you can handle the waterfall, so better revenue. Even if it's 2-3% more, it's a beautiful revenue in the end of the day. But for example, let's say a big publisher and you have hundreds of games, which in hyper-casual genre we have a lot, especially in Turkey.
Yeah.
So just imagine the workload of these monetization department, every game, so many waterfall ad units, and optimizing is so chaotic. So that's why I would say that it's a strategical move for the publisher. Maybe they will prefer, okay, maybe we will lose a bit revenue, but it will save us many benefits, time, money, etc.
I think Kellogg also mentioned some great points here, and we kind of touched upon the mediation giants. So this is one of the hot topics here right now. I see that. So with the Unity and AppLovin and Iron Source, so we see a lot of huge news always going around. So what's your take on the current mediation wars, and how do you think the future will unfold? Ömer, you want to start with that?
Yeah, sure. Actually, mediation is kind of still unknown thing, although it's been inside the market for years. I would say the real mediation wars, I mean, as a hot topic, started with the acquisition of Tapjoy last year. So it was around $400 million. So it's affected the industry, which also led many companies to go into mediation side, like, oh God, there's a big money, let's do that. So afterwards, we have heard about the acquisition of Mopa by AppLovin, which is almost triple value, like more than $1 billion.
That's huge.
It's huge. Like then it's another making AppLovin more huge on that line. So then the competition got on fire, basically. So the current mediations also wanted to have M&As. So because, as you know, they are 1 and 1, 2, you are still 1. So they got double, you are still half, and there's no possibility to compete against them. So right now we are talking about Unity's position in the market on the mediation side. Basically, Unity couldn't get what they wanted from the market on mediation side, so they let Iron Source and AppLovin get the market. Yeah. So they had to make this strategical move on M&A part, so they picked, as you all know, Iron Source. Yeah. So I am expecting a surprise from AppLovin for the next year, especially like Q1 or Q2. So I'm sure they will have an answer to this position. So we will see many more surprises on mediation side, and I'll let the partners continue with that topic. Halic, feel free.
I've got so much. It could take a whole hour. Where should we start? Let's talk about the entities themselves, so AppLovin. Whilst at Mopub, we knew AppLovin, we saw there were previous Mopub people starting this platform. And they were an M&A machine, very strategic acquisitions. And when Max was acquired, we thought it's going to take some time. Okay. Lo and behold, they came into the market, they bought their way. Yeah. People may disagree with me, but publishers say that. It's not necessarily a bad thing, right? They needed to get traction, and they dominated. And then through the further acquisitions, obviously, Mopub. To me, my view was, you can't take their publishers, you just buy the platform they're on, and then you deprecate it. It's just a source of dominance, right? But one thing that has not come through well through the acquisition is one piece of demand which generates a huge amount of revenue for the publishers. So, I mentioned earlier about SSPs and DSPs, right? Buy and sell. Mopub had access to Twitter's demand, which generated a huge portion of revenues for a lot of publishers. When I say huge, meaning that it was a top buyer. That wasn't part of the acquisition that AppLovin acquired. So when publishers moved from Mopub to the Max stack, they lost a huge portion of their revenue, which was an oversight. But Max/AppLovin, they're clever, they're strategic. They have their ad network, so they can compensate from that perspective. Now, if you introduce the Unity iron source acquisition, that hit me in my face. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And then obviously you can see that AppLovin filing a proposal. They're not happy, right? Sure. But it could either go one of two ways. It could be a negotiation tactic from Unity to say, no, we want more money. But they clearly stood up and said, no, this is strategic for us. We see the long-term future. So to me, that pretty much nails in the coffin, saying that we're not going to accept anything regardless of what you give, because if they do, it's a reputational risk for Unity to go forward if they don't do iron source. So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here, but if you were to look at it as a whole, what is their USPs? AppLovin made an acquisition called Whirl, which is a CTV platform. Now they're going to pivot towards CTV, as well as they have in-app. Unity, obviously, they have their framework that developers integrate as part of their app. So they're really ingrained with the developer from day one of developing their app. Plus, Iron Source has a piece of tech called Aura, which works with telephone manufacturers. So they can get their tech on your device before you even turn it on. It's getting to that early part, which is key these days, because mediation, there's nothing left there. Networks, they're dominated. So they've got to try and get earlier in that exposure to the users and the app developers. But, sorry, last thing. DT, Digital Turbine, previously known as Fiverr. Disclaimer, I worked for them before, but I have no incentive of promoting them. But what I'm sharing here is that they are a credible alternative. They don't have a studio. They're there on behalf of publishers, and they work with some notable publishers in the space. They have a booth downstairs. Pop in and have a chat with them. They'll get you to test their mediation, which you should do with your publisher. If you think about the transparency and the revenues, and you want to see what other partners are doing, it's worth having a chat. So, long off tangent.
It's hard to add anything after that.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
But I think you made a valid point that, it's actually you made many valid points. But I think it was actually good news that the Unity AppLovin didn't go through. It's good to have competition, right, in this market. You don't want one massive giant to dominate the same way that happens in web, where everybody uses Ad Manager. So yeah, I think it was good news that there is some consolidation, but there isn't one massive multinational, let's say, that has everything. My 2 cents for the publishers would be to always don't keep all your eggs in one basket. Maybe try different mediation platforms. Don't only focus on one. Test out some others. As you said, that there are valid alternatives out there. It's not only one. And yeah, I think that's always a good point. Don't always focus on one.
Amazing points. All right, now that we talked about the market, DSPs, SSPs, mobile programmatic world, and we talked about mediations, the big companies, let's dive a bit deeper and maybe talk about ad formats. Maybe some of the ones that are maybe kind of overlooked. So, Halic, do you want to start off as
I don't want to dominate again. I'm going off on a tangent always. Fiancé says you need to shut up. So yeah, let's speak about 2 parts. Like, are we making the most of existing formats? Yeah. What other ad formats are there to be explored? So, simple answer is no, we're not making the most. And the second response is yes, there are other formats. So I'm going to use the term squeezing the toothpaste tube. And you'll get what I mean in a moment. So ad monetization people know full well that they need to work with their demand sources, ad networks or ad exchanges, to get the most of them through whether it's placements or waterfall. Now, they're always in squeezing their partners to say, can you fill in this spot in our waterfall? Hence, squeezing the toothpaste out the toothpaste tube. It's a constant battle for them. And there's never a peak, but you can always keep optimizing. So there's always a need for someone to do that legwork. Now, the previous panels before, where they had TapNation and I think it was BidStack, they were talking about in-game and audio. So additional revenue streams, for sure. And if you're hyper-casual, you just want to get as much money as possible in the short span of time. Now, in-game is great. I love it. It's non-intrusive. It works for the brand. There's viewability, but it doesn't have the scale that we do with the formats that we work today, banner, interstitial, and rewarded, for example. So even though it may be great for the user experience, it doesn't necessarily have the scale. But this is where mediation platforms could come back in. They could say, you know what, there's more revenue to be made there, let's look into that potentially, and build out a mediation platform for in-game ads or in-game audio. There's definitely potential there, it's just who's going to jump in there first.
Yeah, cool. So I think, yeah, with all ad formats, I think, if you ask me what's the best strategy to have with ad format, shall I just pick, a certain type? Well, it's hard to say what works for everyone. I think you should always experiment. But I think a very important topic is to think of your monetization strategy when you're, in the game inception. Don't, push out the game and then think, okay, now how shall I monetize it? It's good to think, especially with in-game, what would be a good ad pod for in-game? Shall I, have it inside my game, and where it should be better set? So, as Kalok said, in-game is still in infancy, but I do think it will reach, high scale in the coming years. IAB just released the specs for viewability of the ad units. Basically, the ad unit just has to be like 1.5% of your screen, which means that there is a huge scale there to be obtained. So yeah, I think you should think about, if I could give like 2 suggestions for publishers. The first one would be to think of your monetization when you create the game, and second, don't get stuck on that strategy. Be agile, keep testing, keep optimizing, and test always new formats.
So Kalok and Giuseppe went deeper, but I also want to touch on the basically first and prominent part on the publisher side. So basically, anyway, publishers want their games to be played much more. So on playtime, on retention, they don't want churn. So I think as monetization companies, we should also consider about not distracting these metrics on playtime and retention. So that is where we should be thinking about these ad formats. So let's give separate examples so the publishers will think about more. If there's a puzzle game, if you push all interstitials, rewarded, etc., maybe there will be more churn and less playtime. But that's why some publishers can only prefer banner, for example, which is looking very limited, but you will have an amazing banner income. But on the other side, maybe for an idle game, you will have more rewarded, so maybe there is no interstitial and banner, only rewarded monetization. Then same case for in-game ads. So maybe you have a nice simulation game, then you will say that, okay, like I don't want to get a banner, or I don't want any ads to pop up like interstitial rewarded. So let's skip all of them. You can try full in-game ads, immersive ads part. So I think we shouldn't forget the importance of playtime and retention. So monetization comes after that. If the game isn't played well and the players aren't happy, like there is no good to discuss all these monetization, optimization, etc. They are in the second part.
Players come first.
Yeah, definitely.
Always.
You know it the best, I think.
Exactly.
Here.
We touched upon the in-game advertising, and Giuseppe, you mentioned that it's still in its infancy, and it will go bigger and higher. Do you think it will be disruptive to the environment, and do you think it will be one of the main sources of income?
I certainly hope so. So yeah, I think it will be disruptive. It will take time. Don't expect an overnight overturn of traditional advertising with in-game. But as I said, last week's news about the IAB specs, I think they're like a huge step forward. Finally, we got specs for viewability. We know that a display ad needs to be seen for a second, a video ad for 2 seconds. So all those things, it's a clear sign to the industry. IAB released the specs to make sure that they're not too limiting, so that publishers can embrace the new technology, test it out, and really think strategically about in-game. So yes, I do think it will be disruptive, but it will take time. So don't think that you're just going to run in-game ads for the next quarter.
If you have any closing remarks, I think we're running a little bit out of time. We can take questions if you guys have any. Do we have any questions? Great. then I guess just let's wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for coming. I hope you got some valuable information here. If you need to ask us, if you want to ask us anything, you can, I think, find us in the main area. So
All of us are gold sponsors, so feel
Yeah.
free to come to our booth and any questions.
exactly.
I stand out. I'm Chinese.
Thank you.